Student, I hope you all are enjoying your time with your family members. Now, continuing with this series of the plants and animal taxonomy. So, as we have seen in the last video, that we have covered the plant taxonomy and we have covered the topic called cryptogamy. So, in this particular tutorial, we are going to cover the topic under gymnosperms and angiosperms, which belongs to the term called phanerogams, as you can see on the board. Okay, so let us see what they are and what their features are. So first of all, before we begin, you should know that in this particular topic, we are going to study about the phanerogams. So just to recollect some idea what we have done in the last video, just check it out that what the two terms were. So we were reading about cryptogams, phanerogams. I already have told you some differences in the last video, it's just a recollection. So in case of cryptogams, you know they reproduce by spore formation, they form the seeds, and crypto means hidden, so they have the reproductive organ which are hidden. Here they say they are exposed, and then you can see they are less evolved plants, while the one that we are going to read now, they are more evolved plants. Okay, they look like more like a highly evolved plants. And all those angiosperms that we are going to study and the gymnosperms, okay, they belong to phanerogams, while the one we studied about thallophyta, bryophyta, pteridophytes, they all belong to cryptogams. Okay, so that is just an idea that what we are going to study about. So as I have told you in the differences that phanerogams in particular, so they are the seed bearing plants, write it down, with evident reproductive organs called flower. Okay, so now we can see the flower come into the scene, and depending upon these two scenarios, that is on the basis of the naked ovules or nuodes here, or the absence or presence of fruits, this phanerogams has got further two parts called gymnosperms and angiosperms. So let us see what these topics are now. So this is the flow chart that you should be drawing in your respective bio copy. So just check it out and have it in your respective copy to be drawn as the video tutorial proceed. So the phanerogams is further divided into gymnosperm and angiosperm. Okay, so gymnosperm, I have told you, they are the plant with naked seeds, while the angiosperms, depending upon the cotyledon in them, we further divide them into two segments. One are called monocots or monocotyledonous plant, other are called dicots. So in that monocot, the word mono means one, so they have only one cotyledon, while dicot, it means two. So plants have seed with two cotyledons. Okay, so this we are going to study in detail in this particular topic. Okay, so before we move into, you should know the meaning of the word phanerogams. So they are meaning seed bearing plants. They are most advanced plant. Okay, make sure you should know about them, and we also call them as spermatophyta. So write down a new word here, spermato, okay, phytes, yeah, phyta. So they are also referred as spermatophytes. Now depending upon the features, so we further have these advanced feature with them. So these phanerogams are terrestrial plants, that means land plants, and they are the more advanced than cryptogam that we have read in last tutorial. And as told you, we also call them as flowering plants. So these are the features, you copy it down properly, that will help you to understand about the phanerogams. Okay, so number one is they are well differentiated plants, that is the plant body is divided into the basic part called distinct roots, shoot and leaves. So underline these three features of that particular phanerogams. Then they are multicellular, you know it. They are eukaryotic, well developed nucleus, and of course they contain chlorophyll. So these 2 points of the difference or the features of phanerogams will help you out to understand the topic better. Then continuing with the same topic with the respective features. So as I know, they can do the photosynthesis. So, we call them, they are photoautotrophs. Okay? So, they can make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. Now, we have just told you they are the flowering plants and they have vascular system in them, that is they consist of tissues, xylem and phloem. So, they are flowering plants having well developed vascular system. Okay? And as I have told you, they are the higher terrestrial plants and they approximately, you can find them in deserts and mountains, rainforest, approximately the whole zone on planet Earth, more or less, where they are quite abundantly formed. So, in this particular again, so their reproductive organs I have told you are the flowers, and the life cycle here has a point that you must know it. So, the life cycle of phanerogams completes in two phases. Okay? So, one is called sporophytic phase, other is called gametophytic phase. So, write down these two new words you can. One is sporophytic. Okay? Sporophytic. So, this is the term concerned with spore formation, and other is gametophytic, the gamete formation. Okay? So, when we call these two terms, when the life cycle revolve or move into the sporophytic phase and gametophytic phase, then we use the word alteration of generation. Underline the new word. This says, for a better understanding, alteration of generation. And then the plant body is diploid. So, these points you should write down in respective notes copies for your better understanding at the respective zone. Okay? Then, as I have told you, these phanerogams have further two groups. They are classified into, as you have seen in the first screenshot there. So, they are gymnosperms and angiosperms. So, gymno, I have told you, they have a naked seed plants, they have a covered seed plants. Now, we study about these gymnosperms and angiosperm as the tutorial moves in. Now, first of all, write down the word gymnosperm. So, here it is again a Greek word which consists of gymno and sperma. So, gymno means naked, sperma means seeds. Okay? So, that means these plants have got naked seeds and they are called primitive seed plants. Just write it down. They are basically referred as primitive seed plants. Then they do not possess fruits. So, make sure they do not bear fruits, they lack flowers, so, and they are woody and perennial trees. So, write down these some points. Number one, primitive seed plant, they do not possess fruits, they lack flowers, and they are woody and perennial. Okay? So, they grow throughout the season. Then some examples that we are having in your textbook from Cycas, Pinus. So, they are the example which is being mentioned in your respective textbooks. So, we deal about the terms such as microsporangia and megasporangia. So, you just take out the practical copies. There we have these two terms quite mentioned. So, when we have practicals, we will deal about these terms more in detail. Now comes the second class or second group called angiosperm. Okay? So, again write down the meaning. Angion is again a Greek word, means another word means hidden, and sperma means seed. Okay? So, basically in these they are the flowering plants, they have seeds which is enclosed in a fruit. Underline this new word coming to you. And these plants or the flower of these plants or this particular group are more attractive because they play a massive role in pollination, and as a result they attract the insects and birds for their pollinative purpose. So, we read about the fertilization and all these things in the other classes as we grow in the higher classes. Then I have told about the pollination, the transfer of pollen grains, you know it. So, they undergo a fertilization process. Then they say the angiosperm, I have told you just in that flow chart, is further divided into two parts, dicots and monocots. So, we will deal about all these, read about these terms in this tutorial itself. Now, that gives you a simple idea that how you can compare or make a difference between both these parts called gymnosperms and angiosperms. So, here is a brief illustration, though we have done it, so write it down in points. So, number 1 we have told you they bear naked seeds. Then the male and female sex organs are called sporophytes. So, underline the word called saprophytes. So, make sure they should know the word called saprophytes. Okay, saprophytes. The means carried by the saprophytic stuff, saprophyte, it's the male and female sex organs carried by, okay. Then of course the ovules are not surrounded by ovary, and then plants are, again I have told you, evergreen and woody. Then we have told you xylem in these plants are absent. Then phloem again won't contain the companion cells. So these are the elements of vascular tissue, okay. The last topic in the topic of tissues or plant tissue, the complex plant tissue we have read called the xylem and phloem. So they are the elements. One of the element of phloem is companion cells, okay. The example in the textbook from Gymnosperm is spinous and cycus. So as far as angiosperm is concerned, we just revise the whole data again. Number 1, the seeds are surrounded by fruits, and again we have the flowers for the reproductive surface or reproductive process. Then ovules are surrounded by ovary. That has been the new term for you. The ovules, develop into seeds after fertilization, while the ovary develop into fruits, okay. So since they bear fruits, so you should know these two terms, ovary and ovules. Then again the plants are annual or biennial, and again now they have these elements present, okay. You can see in xylem they have vessels, and in phloem they have companion cells. What the gymnosperms won't have it. So angiosperms are also called flowering plants, okay. And basically the example you can see the coconuts, the tree, the bamboos. So they are all the example of angiosperm. Now you can see a beautiful shot here where you can see a baby plant taking the form of the whole structure. You can see a tiny leaf like structure going here, and the structure is referred is the topic now we are going to deal with, called cotyledons, okay. So this number I take down. The cotyledons are also called the first leaf produced by plants, okay. Though they are not true leaves, but they are also referred as seed leaves. Underline this part. They are also referred as seed leaves, okay. Because why they are called so? Because they are actually part of the seed or embryo of the plant, and the seed leaves serve to assess the stored nutrients in the seeds, okay, until the true leaf develop and begin photosynthesizing. That means when the plant is in baby form, every aspect of the lifeline is been governed by cotyledons, okay. And these things should be known to you, because these cotyledons, as we have or we will discuss it, that will develop into two parts, monocots and dicots. And when the mature leaves grow, these cotyledons then basically fall off, okay. Now these are some points of reference that should be knowing it. So in case of, write down this one, how you differentiate between monocots and dicots. So as the word mono means in particular having one cotyledon, okay. So when the seed is having one cotyledon, that you can see in the photo shot, the whole structure is of one cotyledon. So then this particular aspect is called monocots. The same you can see the other side. The word di means dicots too. So they have two cotyledons. So you can see here in the photo shot, completely well illustrated. So they have two cotyledons. So they got the word dicots. Now come into the form of the second point of difference. You can see the monocots can be identified by their flower parts also. By looking at the flower, you can say the plant is monocot or dicot. Why? Because the monocot plants come in the multiple of the flower, that is come in the multiple of 3. So you can see here. So what they have got it here. So they have a odd number flower, okay. So you can see the flower parts 1, 2, 3, 4. So as a result, these parts of the flower, that is the baseline, so they come in the multiple of 3 parts. So you can see this stuff again. If you can magnify the stuff, these parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is the multiple of 3, 1. So the flower having a multiple of 3, you can believe that it is basically a monocot. But in case of dicot, you can see, so in dicot plants, they are the multiple of 4 or 5, okay. That means to count the petal, that part is the flower is called petal. Identify where they are multiple of 4 or multiple of 5. So you can see here. So in case of these petals, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 5. So as a result, they come in the multiple of 4 or 5. Then we call it as a dicot stuff, okay. So by knowing the flower, you can easily identify whether that plant belongs to monocots or dicots. Then come into the leaf segment. So in case of monocot, they have parallel venation. That means the arrangement of veins you can see here on the leaf, they are all parallel to each other, okay, more or less. So we have a parallel venation. While in case of the dicot leaves, you can see the veins are scattered, so they do not follow any parent, okay. So you can see the whole veins have got a scattering stuff in the leaf surface. So by looking at the leaf, you can identify whether this plant is a monocot or dicot. Now then comes this beautiful photo shot you can see regarding the vascular bundles, okay. So in this case of monocot, the vascular bundles are scattered in the whole tissue, okay. So you can see here, this outer covering is epidermis, and these are the vascular bundles, okay. Each one is referred as a vascular bundle, you can see that. And this vascular bundle, more or less, the blue dot represents the phloem part, the red dot represents the xylem part. So you can see they are approximately scattered throughout this stuff. And in case of dicot, you can see it here, they are more organized because they are a woody tissue, I have told you. So they contain the rings and we call these rings here xylem and phloem, you can see. So in the whole stuff, the rings are there in the pattern. So you can see from the diagram shot also. So the 1, 2 and 3, all this stuff. So they basically form the rings, and by counting the rings, we know we can calculate or find the age of the tree also. So this is the process by which we can calculate that how old the tree is. Now ultimately or finally, this is the thing you must be knowing about the roots in this particular system of monocots and dicots. We have two type of root system, as we know, fibrous and taproot system. So say when the embryo takes and grow its roots, so the structural difference comes in. So underline this data. So in case of monocots, they have a fibrous, that means at a single point the bunch of roots arise, okay. So that is called, they have a fibrous root system called a web like stuff, and they occupy the upper level of the soil, so they are not deeply rooted, okay. And in case of dicot roots, they have a main root called taproot. You might have studied in the other classes. So they have a main root like that, and from the main root secondary and tertiary roots arise. So that is in case of dicots. And in all these things, you know, I have told you the root for the branches of. So as a result, despite the type of the plant, roots are essential for the growth. We know it for their survival. And what is the main function of root? They give the anchoraging. That means they encourage the plant or anchor the plant and give them a good support and help in the absorption of minerals. So that should be known to you, absorption, the minerals and nutrient. Now that wind up the whole topic for plant taxonomy. So you should have, or you must go through all the concept of narrowgams and gymnosperms and cryptogames with the diagram and everything, so that once we read this topic in detail, then we will proceed for the animal taxonomy. So for the time being, take care and make sure that you should read all the topics. Bye.